Hello and welcome to Love as a Business Strategy, a podcast that brings humanity to the workplace. We're here to talk about business, but we want to tackle topics that most business leaders shy away from. And we believe that humanity and love should be at the center of every successful business. I'm your host, Jeff Ma. I'm a director at Softway, an agency based out of Houston, Texas, that specializes in digital transformation, culture, and branding. Each episode here, we dive into another element of business or strategy and test our theory of love against it. Today, we have a really interesting and different topic we'd like to cover. We're going to talk about food. And food is a universal connector of people, right? Food is at the center of every occasion. Sharing food is akin to sharing a piece of our identity, culture, and affection. You know, when you sit and eat together and when you eat the same food as others, you grow closer. There have been literal studies that have shown that this is a statistical fact that when they've studied it, when people eat the same food, they reach agreements faster, have more affinity for one another, they view each other in more favorable lights. And so we want to kind of dive into that and see how is food connected to business and what role does love play in all of this as well, of course. So let's dig into a big old heaping bowl of discussion.
Oh, okay.
Please wait till you're introduced, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm really excited to bring on a new face and voice to the podcast today. A beloved project manager at Softway, a good friend, and the producer of this show, Miss Maggie McClurkin. Maggie, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
And Maggie happens to be the one who also creates the blind icebreaker questions that I love to have. That she sends them. I don't open them until the show starts, and so that's a huge value add that if you guys appreciate those openings where I put everyone on the spot, you know, that's all her. And so, Maggie, icebreaker question for you today.
Mm-hmm.
What is something you're great at cooking?
Oh, thank goodness. I told you to give me this question, and I'm glad you did. Let's see. I haven't thought about this before. Just kidding. So I would say my very first job in high school was at a Mexican restaurant, and I was the tableside guacamole girl. So I'm really good at making guacamole, especially if I have a cart and you tip me.
Chris, can we talk about how that's kind of been like the dream for Softway? Can we talk about that?
I really want to break in and just say, Maggie, the idea that I've had for the longest time is to have a rolling cart of tableside guac for employee appreciation days, where we just have, Topo Chico and guacamole that just rolls around and you just have your fill. And it's just a small way to say I love you at work.
Well,
so I'm telling you, he's done that. He said that for years. This is not a new thing.
This is an old vision, and you are now completing it.
Yep. So, it was great.
If this is your first time tuning in, let me introduce the other voices you're also hearing already. Let's go ahead and go with Chris. Chris Petrie, our VP at Softway. Welcome, Chris, again here.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. What is something that always finds its way into your grocery cart?
That is a great question. So there's the healthy stuff, and then there's the not so healthy things. So I'll give the guilty pleasure. Starburst is always finding its way in my cart, and it's I try and avoid it, and then it's right there at checkout. I'm I'm a work in progress. I will say that. So hang in there. I'm hanging in there. Yeah.
And I don't think anybody wanted the healthy answer to that question. I'm pretty sure that was how it was meant to be answered. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well done.
Your honesty.
Yeah. I'm working on it.
Last but not least, we have Mr. Frank Dana, a director at Softway. Frank.
Hey, Jeff.
Welcome.
Hey.
If you ready for this one?
No.
I just read it. It's great.
Oh my gosh.
If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Wow. That is a very intense question.
So much high stakes, man.
This is the highest stakes on a very tall table. So let me say this. I really love, there's a type of salsa that I could eat forever, and then I think I will end up eating forever. It's Mrs. Renfro's mango habanero salsa. I could eat that every day for the rest of my life. It's fantastic.
You realize the question was this the only food you could eat for the rest of your life? So you're just going to
Mrs. Renfro's, Mrs. Renfro's mango habanero salsa.
All right.
stop.
So
Yeah, that answer would have been scrambled eggs for me.
Yeah.
Like really delicious, fluffy scrambled eggs, lightly salted, cooked in butter, every single meal. Get your protein in.
So
it's just delicious. So
listen,
this is what I worried about for this episode.
No. True story. Chris taught me how to make the best scrambled eggs ever when we were in India, and my kids love it so much because he taught me the right way to make soft scrambled eggs, and it's
So good.
awesome. It's real. It's real.
So let me reel this in real quick. Clearly, there's a passion for food here. We just cannot stop even talking about it, much less eating it. So let's open it up. And Maggie, I'd like to ask you, can you just start it off? Like, what role does food play at Softway? At least from your perspective.
So I have been at Softway a little over a year, and one of the very first things I was told about Softway was that food was part of the culture, and I was, I didn't take it very seriously. Like, that's not, I don't know, it didn't sound real, I guess, but I've definitely grown to believe that is true. But something that really stood out to me about Softway is the food, yes, but also just the gathering of people around food. My very first week, it's always so super awkward, especially around lunchtime when you don't know who you're going to sit with, who you're going to talk to. My job right before this, I don't think I had lunch with a single person the whole year that I worked there. So I was just nervous like the first week. And my very first day, my team set up a lunch like welcoming me, which was just nice. Wouldn't have to worry about who you were going to eat lunch with. But not only that, like I think for the next week or even 2 weeks, someone or some team that I was affiliated with either invited me to lunch, asked if I wanted to eat with them while we were working, or just kind of figured out how we were going to eat together, which was just nice. Like, and it didn't have to be anything like fancy, and they didn't have to pay for it. That wasn't the point. It's more so like someone's looking out for me. They know it's awkward when you're new and you don't know who you're going to sit with if you feel like a kid again in the cafeteria. And it was just nice. I never had to worry about that at Softway. Like, someone always was like, hey, just come join us. And ever since then, I don't think I've ever eaten a meal alone at Softway. So
Awesome. Frank, what's your take?
So, I want to talk a little bit about, we're talking about food, right? But I also want to talk about drinks, which is still kind of part of that category, I'm guessing. And a lot of people here at Softway were very excited when we moved into our new offices about this time last year, actually. And we had an espresso maker, like an espresso machine. And I fell in love with it because I was like, I can make coffee and make coffee for anybody who wants it. So I just stand there and be like, does anybody want coffee? I'll make it for you. And they're like, why? What do you, and we would buy random coffee from, big bulk stores, big box stores. All that coffee is burned. And there was a moment in time where I visited a coffee shop here in Houston, and I was talking to one of the owners, and I just told him about an experience that we had coming back from Brazil, having some of the best coffee I've ever had in my entire life. And I asked him a question. I was like, hey, could you guys like roast us some coffee? And he said, well, we can do you one better. How about we roast a custom blend of coffee for your company? And I thought, let's do that. And what was interesting is, these co-owners of the small coffee shop, they actually got to know our team. They came in, I don't know if you guys remember this, but they came in on Halloween when we were doing our Halloween event, and I was dressed up in the, what was the guy's name, Jeff? I can't remember. Any questions? That guy.
You don't remember your own costume?
David S. Pumpkins, Tom Hanks. Any questions? So I'm walking them around our office, introducing them to people, and they're getting to know our culture and our vibe. And they actually roasted a unique blend of coffee for Softway. This may sound crazy, but they used Hawaiian Kona, Nicaraguan, Brazilian beans, and they saw the diverse nature of our culture, and they formatted that into a cup of coffee, and they called it the Softway blend. And so every month, before we were social distancing, we would order 4 to 5 kilos of coffee, and that is the coffee we would make in our office. And it was our own blend for our own team. And we even took it to the next level and ordered a bunch of bags of coffee for our clients. So our clients were able to experience a little bit of Softway and taste essentially the diversity in our team through the diversity in our coffee. And it was a very cool thing, up to the point where I'd go into their coffee shop and I'd have baristas say, 3 people came in yesterday and asked for the Softway blend. And we said, we don't make that here. It's just for Softway. You have to go to them. So if you ever come to our office, or if we ever get a chance to meet you in person, we'll make you coffee and make sure that coffee is part of the conversation, because it's a great way to engage and connect. And we were already spending money on it anyway. We're already buying coffee beans for our company. Why not take it a step further and actually make it something that's deeply embedded into who we are and the culture of our team?
Yeah, there's that element of wanting to nerd out over food and then share it with others.
Exactly. And you can share over a cup of coffee. It's a great thing. And Chris, is not a coffee drinker, but tea is something we can talk about.
Yeah. Tea, actually. Yeah. No, I think food does play a really important role at Softway. And I think it really has shaped the way that we relate to each other. I like to tell people that the easiest way to include someone is through food. Like, it doesn't matter what the difference is and cultures and background. Like, that's like the easiest way to build that inclusivity. And it's also really, really appreciated, as you have learned.
Yeah, what stands out to me every time we talk about food is like our annual Thanksgiving potlucks. Which is like, we're like, if you've worked with us, you've probably been invited, because it's not just this closed door thing. It's like us, every client, every friend, family member, and there's no theme to it. It's literally bring what you love, and some of the best meals of my life are just in our office after work hours on Thanksgiving.
Softway's greatest hits is what I call it, right?
So good.
So talk about diversity and stuff like that. I mean, that's so represented in there as well.
But I will tell you guys that you have to curate your potluck, because you can't just let anybody bring anything. Like, it has to be thought through. It can't be something that you're testing out on us. It has to be something that you've had, tasted, cooked before, whatever.
The backstory here, the backstory here is that we pride ourselves in the potluck so much that we got to the point where Chris will go around the office the weeks leading up to it with a clipboard and loom over
curate.
He'll be like,
the word I'm looking for, Jeff.
He'd be like, I noticed you put one macaroni and cheese. Like, how much are we talking right now? Are you going to bring enough for everybody? I just want to make sure, because this is a pretty important. And we'd be like, Chris, please.
If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right.
Yeah,
we're going to do it. We're going to do it right.
Last year at the potluck, I brought a store-bought pie because I ran out of time, and I got so shamed by so many people. I didn't tell many people that it was me, but people saw it on the spread and were like, "Who brought this?
Oh,
this
no.
This is a disgrace." And I was
Maggie.
like, "I don't know. That's so rude. Who would do that?"
Well, thank you for expressing your shame and your sin.
Yeah. I'll do better next year.
Yeah.
It's your first year. Okay, you get a pat.
Yeah, it was your first time.
So this is a business podcast. We are having a lot of fun already, but I do want to have this really serious kind of conversation about, why does any of this matter to business, right? We're all about business outcomes and impacts. That's in the title of what we want to do here. So Chris, can you lead us off? What is the tie into business? Why can this possibly matter?
Well, actually, data shows that having meals together does benefit organizations, because it is a unifying agent. Teams can work together longer. Teams can actually use food to overcome issues and conflict. And you see that not just in business, but even throughout history, whether that's a warring nation, all the way to Real Housewives who need to go to a restaurant to talk things through, right? Food is at the table, or food is really the common agent that bonds and unites people and helps, build bridges when there is that difference or conflict. And so I know that we've seen at Softway just the idea of bringing food into a meeting, whether that's just internally or even with the client, and we create an experience around it. It's not just sandwiches, right? There's thought put into the food and what's coming in. It actually makes a huge difference in just the environment and the energy and the thinking and the outcomes, right? And it sounds fluffy, but it's real. When someone receives a meal that they weren't anticipating and it's better than a sandwich, right? It's just like, somebody thought of me, right? And it unlocks the conversations that lead to better outcomes, right? It gets people into a place of comfort, and where they actually get to understand cultures that are different from their own through the food, if you are thoughtful about that food.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about cultures, but just basic inclusivity, like regardless of diversity, like it always stands out to me how well we know the dietary restrictions of everyone in our office. Like it's just as well known. It's like not written anywhere. It's not documented, but everyone knows, like, if you're gonna get Chris something, don't put any cilantro on it, right? You know who's vegan, you know who's vegetarian, you know who's halal, who's gluten-free, all this stuff. And it's just little. It's a little thing, but it always stands out to me as like a thing that matters, because when we work together, we just know each other that much better.
Agreed. And I think when you're talking about getting to know people better, it's really empathy, right? So having more empathy for each other and consideration for each other's preferences is such a big deal, because it shows that you care. And for me, it's all about curiosity. Like, one of the incredible opportunities is we've seen that curious teams lead to innovation and innovative products. And to keep people more curious, one of the best ways to do it is, if you're seeing somebody eating a type of food that you've never seen before, our culture has it where you ask the question, what is that? I've never tried that. And one of my favorite stories has to do with Mohammed, our CEO. He used to, when we weren't social distancing, share his food almost every day. So he'd walk in and purposefully not force feed, but he would be like, you're going to eat this portion of my meal. And it was all so delicious, and the flavors and the profiles and that ratatouille moment where he eats the strawberry and the cheese and like stuff happens. That is what happens when you actually try foods that you've never tried before.
Yeah. And I just want to give a shout out to his wife, Yulia, who prepares those meals. Yulia, I'm her biggest fan and friend. She knows me. Hey, Yulia. She listens to this, so I just want to make sure she knows that we appreciate the meals that she sends with Muhammad for him to share.
She should know that everybody has tasted her food. And it's great.
Yeah, everyone is eating your food at Softway, and it's fantastic. So what I'm saying here, though, is that curious minds are important. And when people are that into trying new foods, it also creates opportunity for innovation and curiosity within projects and conversations and building better teams.
Yep. Maggie, do you have a take?
Yeah. So I'm a project manager, and at Softway, we like to kind of define project managers as really more servant leaders. Like, a lot of people here are defined to be servant leaders. But our role is really to serve our team, and whatever that looks like. There's really nothing defined. But sometimes that looks like, typical project management things like project plans and scheduling and removing blocks and impediments for people. But a lot of times it looks like making sure your team is fed. And that I went through a period when we were just really busy. My team was just slammed, and we had back-to-back meetings every day for over a period of a couple months. And so part of my job was, hey, I got food for this meeting. We're going to eat at this time. This is what we're having. I already know your order. And it was just nice. Like, not only did they not have to worry about it, but they were typically more productive if I fed them and they didn't have to worry about it. So that was a direct business outcome for our team, I would say.
For sure. No,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, the other thing that I know that I do and others do is, whenever there's people from the US going to India, we purposefully pack our suitcases full of American treats and things that we can sort of bring to the office, whether that's beaver nuggets from Buc-ee's. If you've never had those, please go out and get those. To Skittles, to honey roasted pecans,
to Chick-fil-A sauce.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A sauce. We get requests now, but it's always something where when we travel to visit our global employees, we try and think about what they can taste from our hometown. And I remember one time I wanted to do a special meeting with the HR team. So I brought pancake mix and syrup from the US because I was like, I don't know if y'all have what I want you guys to taste. So we had a special a meeting where we had a breakfast meeting, and I cooked pancakes and scrambled eggs, as Frank mentioned, and let them eat an American breakfast, right? And it was such a cool experience. We were supposed to talk about stuff, but we actually didn't talk, but we were still productive because when we did meet, everybody was full and, remember that experience.
Happy
but it was
and
a great
happy.
bonding. It was such a great bonding experience, and it cost little of nothing.
And we did that for.
Sorry,
Go ahead,
Frank.
Maggie.
I was just
Go
going to say, speaking of breakfast, like there's no better motivator to get your team to come into an early meeting than saying good breakfast.
Good breakfast.
Yeah.
Tactical things coming out here.
Agreed. And remember that one time when we brought s'mores and introduced our Indian leadership team to s'mores and made s'mores?
Yes.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was. And just because, so the thing is we have to make sure that when you go to India, there's a large amount of vegetarians and different dietary restrictions. So we went on Amazon and ordered vegetarian marshmallows and halal marshmallows.
Yep.
And like brought those in through our bags with the graham crackers and the chocolate. Like, so everything was from the US, including the skewers, and brought that to an offsite event that we did. And it was everyone's first time having a s'more, which was amazing to see and watch their eyes light up when they tasted the first one.
So food runs deep.
That was an awkward airport bag check. Anyway,
These are for s'mores.
Like work or pleasure, s'mores. So let's tie it together. We always end with tying it to love. What does this mean for our listeners? Like, what are the takeaways here? What can they tangibly take away from this? Frank, you want to kick us off?
So what you've heard is just a lot of different stories around how food is a huge part of our culture. And food really does help us develop a better culture of love, because we show each other love by the food that we eat together and by the food that we make for each other. So bringing it into business is just a natural way to bring love into this particular environment. And that for me is the most important thing. If I can show someone love by being inclusive with the type of food that I'm ordering, by thinking about what their preferences are or their restrictions are, and making sure that the food that we're eating together is something that's like a unique experience, a culinary experience when possible, it really does create a culture of love and support for each other.
Yeah, I think it is as simple as that. I posed the question like it's like crazy deep, but I mean, food for a lot of people equals love. I know it does for me. And so, feeding each other is just synonymous to that, including them, that camaraderie it forms, that trust it builds. And those are all things you're going to find in high performing teams. If you need a shortcut to get your team kicked up in gear, I mean, they often say you need a one-on-one, take them out to lunch, like add food to the equation, and all of a sudden it's just different. And I think that's a very simple takeaway for listeners of where does, we're not trying to point out that this is the silver bullet key strategy that you're missing in your business, but it is worth thinking about what kind of role does food play, and is there any opportunity? Chris or Maggie, anything else to add?
I just know that I always felt loved when I was in the office late, and I knew Chris's snack drawer was available and open to me. So
that, like, talk about curation, right? Like the theme around me is curated experiences, right? So if you're gonna have food, my thing is, if you're gonna do something wrong, do it right, and that includes like if you're gonna take in calories, like, and they're not the best calories, they better be delicious calories.
And you're great.
What was that, Maggie?
He's a great sharer too.
Yeah.
No, I like the thing that I would say around food and love is if you're a leader or if you are an individual contributor, it doesn't matter. You can always sort of get into someone's heart by just thinking about how you can feed them. And it's just this really small gesture that can go a really long way and last a lifetime, right? I think that food is such a simple and easy fix to a lot of the challenges that some business face, but it's often overlooked or deprioritized out of budgets because it's seen as an expense more so than a connector or a tool to get people to come together.
And, you know, actually that reminds me, being remote is not an excuse not to eat together. And that may sound weird, but you know, one of the things that one of our team members did organically was set aside time every day to have people join in during lunch, like in that time frame where if you need to jump into a Google Meet session, someone's going to be there. And you can just awkwardly eat your tomato soup and they can awkwardly eat their sandwich and you can just kind of engage. But the reality is there are still ways of connecting those dots, even though we're not next to each other. And that could also mean like surprising someone with food delivery even, and making sure that they're well fed. And so there are lots of different ways to think creatively. And like Chris mentioned, without breaking the bank is still a great way to continue to build a culture of love.
Yeah. And with clients too, right? So
Absolutely.
having that go to clients or business partners or vendors and folks that you just do business with. I know we've had some really great experiences and introduced new foods and restaurants to our clients that they would have never considered otherwise. And always get stories and sort of repeated thank yous because of those new experiences. So again, curation matters, right? That is a takeaway here. Curate your food experiences internally, people. That's all.
Well, thank you, Chris, for that expertise. And thank you, Maggie and Frank, for joining. It's as simple as that. We obviously have too much to say about this topic, but it was a really fun one. And we hope you guys out there enjoyed it as well. We're posting new episodes every Friday. And, you know, we want to hear from you guys. Softway.com/labs, LAABS, if you want to leave us some feedback or start a conversation. And if you liked what you heard today, really, please do consider leaving us a review or a rating on Apple Podcasts, things like that. It really would mean a lot to us. So with that, you know, we will see you next Friday. And thank you guys very much.